All right, today I wanted to talk about mental health and more specifically, mental health in media. Not just movies, but books and actual real life media, the news. And I think I want to start with my favorite. Well, let's not start with movies. So I watch a lot of booktube, book reviews, because I'm a writer and I think it's interesting. And I can't read every book, so I like to listen to people talk and get their opinions on it, you know, and know what's new, what's going on, what's coming out in the book world. But I was watching this one, and I'm not going to name the person because it doesn't really matter. But they were reviewing a book, and there was a character in the book, a boyfriend, and he's mentally ill, and he starts to have a breakdown, and the girlfriend, she leaves, and there's roommates who call her and basically tell it, look, he's flipping out, this is what he's doing. They're describing what's going on to her. I don't really remember if this was the first time he had a breakdown. She didn't really say that, but so she's going through what he's doing. She's saying, oh, he ripped all the sheets off the bed, he threw the pillows in the garbage can, and she's just naming all this insane things that he did. So the book reviewer, she's very upset by this, saying how this person is toxic, run, get the hell away from there, never come back, which I understand that reaction. But I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But what I don't understand is that this reviewer says that, that the author that came up with this, the sick, twisted mind that came up with this scenario, that they're an awful person, that they would even put this down on a piece of paper, which is I think that's a little bit going too far, especially since it's a very accurate representation of what can happen in mania in a manic episode. I've gone through things very similar. I didn't want to do the dishes, so I threw away everything, all the glass dishes, all the plates, all the coffee, everything, and replaced it with plastic silverware, paper cups, all because I didn't want to do the dishes and I was sick of getting nagged about it. So to hear something like, oh, they stripped the sheets from the bed, threw the pillows in the garbage can, that's very relatable to someone who's had one of these episodes. And it's easy for people to not understand that. People don't talk enough about mental health, so they don't really, a lot of people don't understand the reality of what it's like. They see in movies, and I'm going to talk about some movies that got it right. Um, but they see these representation in movies, and they're usually just wrong. These violent tendencies that they think people have, and it's just not accurate from what I've seen, and what I've experienced. I'll get into it later, but the statistic is that you're more likely to be a victim of violence if you're mentally ill than you are to commit an act of violence if you're mentally ill. But people ignore that statistic. It's always the mentally ill's fault. Um, just anytime there's a mass shooting, oh, they were mentally ill. I mean, the head of the NRA came out. He thinks if you get diagnosed with a mental illness, that you should preemptively be institutionalized forever, which is insane. It, uh, you think mentally ill people are insane? No, that statement is insane. To think that we should minority report people and lock them away before they commit a crime, and when there's no evidence that this is a violent person that's going to act out. But of course, it's the NRA, so they will say anything to block gun control. But I'm not going to get into some Second Amendment debate right now. So, moving on from the book reviewer who was so repulsed by an accurate description of a mental breakdown, I'm going to start with my favorite movie. Um, and it seems like it's the least realistic when I name the next two movies, but far from it. It's very realistic, and that movie is Donnie Darko. So in Donnie Darko, it starts. I'm not going to give away the whole thing, but I will put the trailers to these movies in case anybody hasn't seen them, because they're all three are excellent. So he wakes up in weird places. He doesn't know how he got there. You know, he goes to therapy. You know, he's on medication. You know, he's trying to do everything right. But he's still getting these visions, and the visions tell him things, and he believes them because that's what you do. I mean, I've had it. I've had the audible, the visual hallucinate. I'm bipolar, and that's not always the case with bipolar that you have the hallucinations. I tripped on that word, hallucinations, but I do frequently when I'm manic. Um, Anything from texting, FBI, CIA, long text chains that mysteriously have disappeared once your pills start working again. Um, a big one with me was thinking that the television, sorry, it's hard to talk. It's a little bit difficult to talk about, but you know, believing that the television is talking specifically to me, whether it's live TV, pre-recorded, it could be 30-year-old movie and they're talking to me. They're telling me, sending me messages. So that's accurate. The hallucination and, you know, memories that you can't really tell. You don't know, was this a dream? Did it happen? Did it not happen? Is this real? Am I meant to save the world? You know, this is things that go through your head. This is accurate. And beyond that, as far as the therapy goes, when they discuss religion, you know, bringing up, you know, do you believe in God? Why not? I've dealt with that when seeing a new therapist. One of the first things they did was bring up religion. And when I told them that I'm agnostic and I don't believe anything 100%, I'm not denying that it's possible, but I don't fully embrace it as a belief system. So they're discussing this, and she puts them under hypnosis, which I would never do because I'm terrified of it. I do not want that. But he begins to hallucinate during the session, and it is so accurate to the feeling that you get, the fear when you see some of these things. It was Jake Gyllenhaal that played the character, and his acting, unbelievable. The fear in his voice, his reaction when he first sees the hallucination. I keep tripping up on that word. When he's seeing things that aren't there, it it hits you if you've dealt with these things because it's just so real. And people look at this movie and they just think, oh, this is just some wild sci-fi science fiction movie, you know, and it's not. It's not. It is one of the realest representations of bipolar mania that I have ever seen. Bipolar mania with the hallucinations, the seeing and hearing things that aren't there. And I don't I don't think it's really necessary to go deep dive into these movies and tell exactly, but so I'm gonna try to speed this up. But you know, people don't know what to think. You know, Baker acted, which is an involuntary hold, a 72-hour hold, which I've had happen to me 2 times. Um, but people don't have an accurate representation of what a mental institution is. People in their head, what they see. You know, if they close their eyes and they see a padded room and you're in a straitjacket, that was not my experience. My experience was more like Saturday school, but you have to stay the night and go to therapy. So like the Breakfast Club, if all of them had severe chemical imbalances, is more like what it is to stay in a mental institution. It's not a nightmare. I'm sure there are places that are, especially in the past, that were different, that were much more harsh environments. I mean, I dealt with people who, trust me, they're out there. They say things that make the things that I say, which are already beyond insane, sound perfectly plausible compared to the things coming out of their mouth. But I was lucky because I did get out in 72 hours. I had somewhere to go. I had family, you know, that gave a shit, that would take me in while I was sick. And there were people there, and it's heartbreaking. There was an old man, and I'd say mid 60s, maybe later, And we were allowed, there were certain times a day we were allowed to use the phone and call people. And every day this guy called his family and begged them to get him out and bring him home. And they just didn't care. And I don't even know how long he'd been there. Uh, it could have been months, it could have been years. I honestly don't know. But to just be abandoned like that and pawned off on the state, I can't imagine. Like I could see myself. This is why I empathize with homeless people, because if I was in a different situation, with a different family, I could easily be a homeless person. Um, it wouldn't be hard for me to slip into that and fall into that trap. Um, but the way that they portrayed a mental institution and the different, self-harm, and you have people that just vicious, you know what I mean, just verbally vicious to people, which I have been in manic episodes, and you do regret it when you come out of it, when these memories come back, and the memories will come back. And sometimes some of the memories that you have that may or may not be real, they never leave, they're there. I have things that are totally would seem to a normal person out of the realm of possibility, and the memory is there, it happens still, whether it happened or not. In my head it happened. So I just wish there was more art like that portrayed it, and in that light, where it's not just these violent psychopaths, these twisted geniuses with plans of world domination with no empathy. That's not what mental illness is. But as far as the aftermath of a manic episode, I have mixed feelings about the way that's been represented. Silver Linings Playbook. This movie is a movie with Bradley Cooper, and basically his wife cheats on him. He snaps, which same. Um, and he's put in an institution, and he's there for quite a while, I believe. I don't know that they ever say how long he was there, but he was long enough in there with a manic episode that he lost tons of weight, which is what happens during a manic episode. You don't eat, you don't sleep, you pace, you chain smoke. You're just all, you can't sit still. You have no need for sleep, no need for food. You don't need fuel. It's just go, go, go. But like even as small as the losing the weight when manic, it's true. But what they didn't show you was what I go through, which is a deep, deep, severe depression, that is indescribable. The way that you feel when you're in that. And when I go through that, it's just in bed, eat, you're living off Pop Tarts, and you never move. You don't get physical activity. You aren't moving around. You just don't care. And last time I went manic, the depressive episode lasted just as long as the mania, which means that the entire episode was over a year long, because the mania lasted more than 6 months, and the recovery was, just as long as that. But I put on a ton of weight. Compared to what normally, I'm huge right now compared to what I normally am. And hence the profile picture looking so different. But the weight will come off. I'll get it off. I always do. It's just, hey, I'm getting older, so it takes a little bit longer now than it used to get back down to where I should be. But like I said, they didn't show the depression. I don't know if other people don't have the depression. The obsessions with books and reading, and something, you want to find something and you have to find it. You have to find it right now. If you have to rip everything out of your closet, pull everything out, you have to have that item right now. So there's things in that with books where the main character, Bradley Cooper, is like that. And to the point of stripping apart the attic and accidentally harming his mother, which was a total accident. But I don't believe I've ever hurt anybody physically, whether on purpose or accidental. But mentally, emotionally, I've said terrible, terrible things to people I love. But I wish they would have showed a little bit more of the side of depression. I understand it's a 2-hour movie. You can't do all this, and people could all be different. But not just his character, but Jennifer Lawrence's character, who is also bipolar. I don't know if it was diagnosed that, but that's obviously what she was. Um, Very promiscuous in the movie, which also true. Um, the Your sex drive, uh, it's bad. Yeah. You make some decisions that you regret. Um, but uh, I don't know. I tried to. I wrote a book. I'm sorry if you think this is a commercial. But of course, on my channel, I am going to promote what I do sometimes. So my novel Warp Asylum, I tried to tackle that. I tried to do that in a way that someone who doesn't have a mental illness could put theirself in that position, step in someone's shoes that's going through that, whether it seems unbelievable to them because it twists into some sci-fi fantasy, more of a metaphor than a exact description of what the episodes are like. But it took me years to write it. It was hard. Um, it was hard. I cried during parts. It's hard to be that real. It's very honest. The things that I say, and trust me, if the reviewer that I spoke about in the beginning of the video were to read my book, she would tell everyone around me to run, because what she described in the book of the pillow being, that is nothing. That is nothing. Um, and there's things you got to deal with. I'll just give one more example of the danger and people's misconception about mental illness. The danger for the mentally ill is what I'm saying. During my last manic episode, I have a real problem regulating adrenaline, the chemicals in my body. My heart was racing and I passed out. And I was with my parents at the time, so they had to call an ambulance. And my home had already been flagged. If the cops get called, I'm not ashamed to admit it. My last two houses, 2 times each, the cops have had to come. Um, so they know if there's a call, they know that one of the residents there has a mental illness and that they've been institutionalized and everything. They can see that in their computer. So the fear that my mother had, she stayed on the phone with the operator the whole time, from the time she called till the time the ambulance and the cops showed up, because they sent the cops due to the red flag. And she just had to beg this operator, just please, he's not violent, he has no weapons, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. And she just had to keep repeating it over and over and over, because she was terrified I was going to get shot. And I didn't do anything wrong. I passed out. I had an episode. I was on the verge of a heart attack, and I passed out. But for a family to have to fear calling for help for a loved one who's suffering because they're afraid the people who should be helping them are going to put a bullet in them. Because I've seen this story countless times of wellness checks gone wrong. And they just tick the box. It's just a statistic. They don't seem to ever, they don't want to correct anything. I know people hated the whole defund the police. It was a horrible, horrible messaging. But part of the, reallocating funds to social workers and things to respond to this is a good idea. It's a very good idea. But it ended up nothing happened. They wanted me to go to the hospital, and I refused. I had to sign paperwork saying that if I die, my family wouldn't sue anybody. But in my mind, they didn't want to take me to a medical hospital, an emergency room hospital, the typical hospital you would think of. In my mind, they wanted to put me in an institution again, which is one of my biggest fears, because even though I say it's not the horror story that you see in a lot of these movies, it's not fun. It's a horrible feeling to be held against your will, especially when you've been med compliant for a decade, more than a decade, and they lock you up anyway. Um, uh, I don't think that's a fair thing to do. Not to get too bit into relationships, but I'm under a very heavy suspicion that my ex-wife, she made the call. She had me institutionalized, because I hadn't done anything. That there was nothing. There wasn't a reason where the cops should be called. That it just, they show up, strap me to a gurney, take me to the hospital, shoot me full of drugs, and then I'm in a mental institution for 3 days. So, um, I don't really think there's much more I can say in this video. I can make more in the future. I don't plan all my previous videos, they're really political, which helps my mental health to say these things. I'm sure the people around me are sick and tired of hearing my opinion on these issues, but just for me, I mean, people who are watching this might hate my other videos, and that's fine. Just don't hate them, hate on them, hate, comment. I don't, it doesn't affect me. I don't plan on getting rich off this. I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to get monetized in 3 months and I'm never going to have to worry about money. That's not what I'm expecting. Um, but so I will be posting my opinions, which might be divisive sometimes, but I also do want to talk about mental health. And I just don't think I'm not, I don't think I have the content to make this a mental health channel. Yeah, I have stories I could tell. I have stories that will blow your mind that I could tell you, but it's still not enough content for this to be a viable channel in the long term. So it's not just politics, current events, things could happen that are not political. And I might talk about, I'll talk about them. I'm not above doing celebrity gossip. I'm not TMZ. I'm not that shit. But if some scandals go down, I will not be afraid to throw in my 2 cents. So, I think that's probably it for today. Like I said, you might be willing. I think until after the inauguration, I'm not going to go super hard into politics. But religion, especially evangelical religion, has turned themselves into a political thing. And the plan for the next episode is to be about religion. Televangelists, these con artists, um, these prosperity gospel preachers who live in castles like Joel Osteen. But that type of thing, to me, yes, it's partly political, but it does have to do with mental health as well. And I will go into briefly in my next video what following these prosperity gospel people, what it did to my sister's mental health. I'm not here to tell her story for her, but I think it's worth touching on it briefly, to illustrate the dangers of these people and what religion can do to people's minds. So I think that's probably enough. Sorry, I just needed a brief second to think if I wanted to hit any more points. But I think that's enough for today. If I come up with more, I'll make more mental health videos. If somebody wants to ask questions in the comments, none of my videos have I asked for likes or subscribers, and I watch these tip videos and they say that does help. So if you want to like and subscribe, that would be awesome. But I'm going to put, where would it be? I think it'd be over here in this area. I'm going to put a link to the spoken word introduction to my novel. There's a lot of stuff, little short excerpts that I have on this page because I started it years ago, and it was more of an art page with spoken word short stories, that type of thing. But I think that's it for the day. I know I've said that 3 times and then I picked another thing to talk about. But I'm getting cotton mouth. I need a drink. So that's it. And hopefully you'll come back for the next video. Hopefully this didn't scare you away.